Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures, and we're back with another obscurity in literature, and what a big hefty obscurity it may be. Today I will let you gaze upon the Encyclopedia Eorzea. So the Encyclopedia Eorzea, if you're not familiar with it, because I certainly wasn't, is kind of like the book form of the Wikipedia for Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I'll tell you straight up, outside of the art books for Final Fantasy XIV, I have absolutely no clue about it, other than it's Final Fantasy related, and I grew up with Final Fantasy, and I love it. Or at least I did when I had time to sit down and play those games, at least when they were in single digit numbers. Anyways, I digress. These books are great because they have absolutely nothing to really do with the game. And I mean that in the best way possible. First of all, you're greeted with, yet as always, gorgeous artwork, but I expect that from Square, and I expect no less. So we get into the whole land of Hydaelyn, and I love her history, her children, her lands, her servants, her burdens, her disciplines, and her creatures. So you get a whole lot of background lore with gorgeous looking maps, all about the lands, and absolutely none of the gameplay to go along with it. Now, an astute game master slash dungeon master slash whatever you want to call yourself if you run any sort of tabletop game, this book is an absolute goldmine. If you wanted to run a Final Fantasy based campaign, you've got literally everything you need in this book. It reminds me of like those, what is it, the DK, like Discovery Kids? I don't even know what the DK stands for, but the black and white books that seem to permeate every children's library, at least in the US. But they're just chock full of interesting facts and tidbits, and I know, at least with my own students, they just seem to gravitate to those books. And for whatever reason, like this year, I've got these kids that are hardcore into geography and everything that encompasses. So for me, this is a particular relevant topic this week and this year in general, because these guys have just gobbled up every Atlas Kids Atlas book about the different countries, customs, cultures that I can find for them. And that's exactly what this book is, except it's all totally fictional. So you get into all the various areas. You've got the 12, which is kind of like the whole zodiac thing. You've got the history of the deities. You've got the whole creation myth in here. There's just so much freaking stuff. And again, gorgeous artwork adorns this book. And to me, any sort of game book or game-based book better be delivering that artwork in spades. I mean, that to me is the best part. This is the kind of book that I love to just grab off the shelf, flip to a random page, and it's just like a nice little chunk right here. The Nimian Plague, the floating city of Nim. The whole history of the early chronology of the world. And we've got, especially you Warhammer players, these, when we get into the whole index of the years and what's going on. I always love that. The names, the locations, the important events, the exciting battles. That stuff's great. Some of this is a little bit more dull in the sense that it's like giving you an intense history of what's going on. Kingdoms dividing, reconquering each other, merging again. Civil servant boredom. And then we get into some of the actual gameplay stuff. I mean, obviously, I have a vague recollection of the whole Realm Reborn and what was going on there. We've got the whole background on it. And again, nothing actually game related. It's just lore. And for somebody like me who loves to just pile through that stuff, like if I'm playing a video game, I don't want to read. I don't want to read this kind of stuff. I want to peruse this on my own time. And that's one of the nice things about this book and having access to it. 12 Knights and all that. Again, you just get tons of art. You get into the races. And I mean, there is some actual screen shots and, CG work here and there throughout the books. the Lalafell, the cat people, whose name I always forget, the Rogaden. I always like the Rogaden. I always tend to prefer the big monstery races, the Aura, if I'm pronouncing any of these correctly. Now, what's interesting is we get into like organizations and various characters and groups, and I don't know, for somebody who's more versed in the game itself, possibly these might be actual players at some point. I know with like 11, that was a big thing with the way everybody just kind of interacted, but you get into all the, you know, thicker geography here, more local things going on. We get into people of interest. And again, you get the background of all these people and who they are. Various points of interest, which I'm assuming are actual locations you can play in the game. But again, you know, if you wanted to have characters traveling through these worlds, you've got every location you need. A little bit of background, what's going on there, what kinds of things you can find there. Maps galore. Various towns to get into the economies, people of interest, as we said. Noble houses, various areas. Getting into the army and their machines. I saw some dragons and stuff in here. One of these books, one of these pages somewhere. We do have something on the various classes. So again, if you wanted to turn this stuff into actual tabletop rules, by all means, go for it. It is totally doable. Dark Knights for me all the way. You get into the various non-player races. Goblins, the Vanu, the Nath, and the Bug People. The big summons and everything, and then we get into a full-on bestiary. And one of the nice things about this book is, unlike the actual art books, we've got artwork for a lot of the monsters rather than just CG renders, which is kind of cool to see, along with a little blurb about them. So again, you want to populate your games, you want to play in Final Fantasy land. I want to say Ivalice, but that's like Final Fantasy Tactics land. I forget which realm is which. There's definitely a lot of interesting critters to be had here. Clockwork creatures, the Void Scent, the Chimeras. The crazy thing is, this is only Volume 1. As you can see, Volume 2 is waiting right here with even more stuff. And I don't know, if I had to pick one, I'd be hard-pressed as to which to get. I got them both at the same time, so I can't really complain. I guess there is a little bit of overlap in some of the areas, but to me this is just... You get into the various saints. They're both pretty cool to have. The various airships that have existed in the world of 14. I want to say maybe this is the only book that has it. There are full-on alphabets, so if you wanted to write your stuff out in their languages, that is something you can do. More maps, more people, just more stuff. So again, if you have even a remote passing in interest in this kind of stuff, I think these books are pretty valuable in that regard. If you're a fan of the games, I'd say even more so. I mean, you get into... Okay, book 2 is the one that has all the weapon stuff. Histories of these weapons, famous ones. I will admit, I've always been a bit of a weeb and gone katanas in most games. Going back to Monster Hunter. Firearms are pretty exotic looking. Summoning books. Oh, it sounds like my daughter decided to actually take in the trash. Wonderful. The panoplies of the various classes. Good old black mages, even though we can see their faces. There's so many weird classes in the online stuff. In the various races, even more of a bestiary. A lot of these aren't repeats either. Some are, but not everything. So, I think between the two books, there's a lot of fun to be had. I think if I had to give an edge to one of them, I'd probably go with the second. And supposedly, there's been rumblings of a third one for ages, at least as of the time of this filming. That has yet to actually pass, but like I said, I think if you have any interest in the Final Fantasy stuff, if you have a fondness like I do for background lore and material without having to sit there and spend time in the games and have, I mean, you could tell, even if you haven't seen the videos I've put out on the art books, there's a lot of work that went into the world of Final Fantasy, of Eorzea. So it's kind of cool to see some of that kind of peeled back and get a peek behind the curtain and actually put into a, I can't think of the word. Put into a way for people to, interact with it, I guess. English is not my forte at the moment. So that's a good sign for me to stop talking, grab some coffee, have some dessert, and catch you all later on here. So if you have any questions or anything, by all means, hit me up on these fun books to be had. Anyway, with that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities in Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.